right, welcome back to Sunrise. Well, the build-up is on, and yes, indeed, by Monday, the inauguration will happen. So, lots of plans, different activities going on at the moment. So, yes, also keeping in view, in perspective, the comments of the president-elect, what he intends to do, most recent yesterday. But we've got two gentlemen, as you may have seen in that welcoming slide, joining us this morning to just shed some light and preview what to expect and review some commentary. Mr. Jacob Ella is the CEO and founder of TAF Africa, and sitting beside him, Kasim Afegba, member, Media Strategy Committee of the PTC. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. My two most beautiful presenters.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Afegba, yes, indeed, of course, lots of expectations, highlights, the PTC having meetings, endless meetings, and strategy sessions, of which you happen to be in the media committee. So, but just seeing one of the comments from the president-elect this morning saying, look, I know what Nigerians want. I will not disappoint. It further heightens a lot of expectations on the part of those who look to the economy and want to see, or just can't wait to see certain things spring up. And those who also, he spoke about unity government as well. So several people are waiting to see, okay, how will this play out? Even though the back and forth about the 10th leadership of NAS is still in one corner. So he's got a lot to juggle, but I guess his experience will come to play. So from your perspective, maybe that of the committee as well, how is the team handling all of what to expect, particularly for the big day?
Well, thank you very much, Chamberlain. Don't expect that magic will fall from heaven. Everything has to be a planned indulgence, planned, approach to the handing over. We have looked at so many scenarios playing out, particularly issues that dominate public discourse. And we are taking them in their stride. Essentially, the president said he knows what the honor bestowed on him, and he knows that the expectations are high. But the president alone can't do the job. So, as a team player, it will be his responsibility and our own to also offer advice, suggestions, initiatives that will help to crystallize, a more result-driven, governance and government, such that Nigerians will be happy for it. Tomorrow, for example, Saturday, there will be a public lecture, by eminent Nigerians and former president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, the Sultan of Sokoto, Bishop Father Matthew Hassan Kuka, Amina Mohammed, Dayo Israel, the youth leader of the APC. They will all be speakers at the event happening in Conference Center. And the topic that they'll be looking at varies from deepening democracy for development, looking at the security issue, the economy you mentioned just now, youth participation, and religious tolerance and inclusiveness, and all of that. And it's a deliberate plan to commence the process leading to the inauguration from a dialogue point of view, so that we can begin to interrogate some of these issues. There are quite a number of issues, hate campaign, agitations at the zonal level, insecurity, youth empowerment issues. So there's the need for us to build inclusivity and see how we can put our heads together and even own the country, because as it is now, there are quite a lot of polarization. There's no national cohesion, national conversation is almost at zero level. So we need to provoke a platform that will generate that, and tomorrow's lecture will be like a takeoff point.
Okay, while we wait to see what happens tomorrow, I do not know if you're also keeping an eye on the courts. Do you think that any of the issues that you have in court, especially that which will be decided today in court, does it make you nervous in any way?
I cannot be nervous. We have lawyers who are representing us. I don't want to preempt whatever the Supreme Court will come up with, but we are not going to detain ourselves and our preparedness for handing over on May 29, by litigations here and there. is peculiar with after elections in Nigeria, people would naturally look for opportunities where they can grab some relevance. But for us, we are looking at the bigger picture of how to, prepare the grounds for proper takeoff of a new administration.
Mr. Pele, I did say there are lots of expectations from Nigerians. What do you expect, for instance?
Well, for the president-elect, the first thing first, I think, will be to fix the security situation. There's so much insecurity in the country, apprehension, fear of the unknown. Him and his team needs to fix issues around security. It's not going to happen in a day, but let's have a plan, a proactive plan, not a reactive security measures like we see amongst the security operatives. They wait until something happens and they start trying to provide solution. I think the second thing will be the economy. I take security first because where there is no peace, there's no investment, and nothing will thrive. So find a solution, at least the beginning of fixing the very fledgling economy that we have. And I think the third would be to continue to push for the unity of this country. I've always said that we only have one country. And this one country is bigger than every one of them. And whatever that will keep us together is worth pursuing. It's also important to also put some of his boys in check, because when people keep making inflammatory rhetorics, it does not unite us. It will further divide us. Let's make sure that everybody is on the table to discuss the future of this country. And of course, inclusiveness. And my brother here mentioned inclusiveness twice in his opening statement. I have not seen that light of inclusiveness from a distance position, because I'm not there in their camp. But I would like to ask, do they have any person with disability in the transition committee? Do they have, you're talking about conference, is there any person with disability that will speak in that conference? Who will represent us? Over 30 million Nigerians. We are a critical number and a critical strategic stakeholder in governance. I think, Mr. President, you will do this country a disservice if you don't have at least one person with disability in your cabinet as a minister, not SA. So I think if truly and really we want to make sure that the country moves forward, these things has to be addressed, and addressed holistically, and addressed from day one. What is the plan? What's the security plan? What's your economic plan? What is your plan to further unite the country? What is your inclusive governance agenda? And who would drive this agenda? It's very, very important. And Chamberlain, I'd like to say one more thing. I understand that the president-elect is planning to announce his cabinet from day one. I will give him kudos if that happens, because that will show a leader who is prepared to hit the ground running. And he has everything. He has what it takes to do that. It's just the will and the commitment.
So since you're on the media committee, perhaps you might get answers to all of these things.
I can't provide all answers, but I can make, I can give you an informed perspective to some of his worries. When I can assure him that there's nothing to worry about. Okay. You are part and parcel of the power process. You have made... No. Listen, you are a Nigerian. You are a voter. During the coalition, you were there, you spoke in the interest of the country, and you spoke for the unity of the country. Those are, very laudable interventions you made during the coalition period. And just to talk about inclusion, You see, government is, a work in progress. And so I know that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu takes issues of persons with disability very seriously. The Presidential Transition Committee was essentially put together by the outgoing government. Only very few persons were accommodated from the other side. 2 initially, then later 12 persons. So if persons with a disability was not, part of those who were nominated, it couldn't have been an oversight. It could be because of the limited space they were given in terms of bringing persons into it. But in terms of government, I share your sentiments completely that persons with disability should be given very frontal role, the status of a minister. But I hope you won't complain they give Minister of State like Kayamo is complaining.
No, not at all. But let me also say that it's not just persons with disability. I want to see women in that cabinet. I want to see the youth in that cabinet.
You can be assured of that. In fact, that's why even in the lecture we are given, tomorrow a youth is going to speak to those issues, and so women are also going to speak. Amina Mohammed is going to speak to a lot of issues. So we need to take into account all the segments of the population, because if you don't get the youth involved, they will feel alienated. If you don't get the women involved, in fact, when it comes to campaign, women are much more committed, devoted to campaigns than even the men. When it comes to even voting, they stay under the sun and all of that. So the president-elect is a man who understands the political dynamics in the country. He knows that rising to this level of his political life was a product of hard work and strategy. And because he didn't inherit any political dynasty by virtue of his upbringing and all of that. So I think he is quite conversant and very much at home with those kind of issues. And I'm sure I'm one of those persons who have implicit confidence in his ability to speak to the issues as from Monday.
What about the cabinet? Do we expect it as quick as Mr. Pele mentioned?
Well, I'm not in his mind, but the thinking around us is that from May 29 at least, there will be some announcements.
I'm looking at the issue of social cohesion. I know you've spoken about inclusiveness. Mr. Afebua mentioned it in passing about the fact that national conversations now are quite are almost absent. How big an issue do you think that should be for the incoming government? How big a priority should that be for them?
It's as big as the problems that we have around disunity. It's an issue that must not be swept under the carpet. We're very polarized. We're divided. And when what led to that is not dealt with, is treated as elephant in the room, we will never get to a point where we experience true unity and nationalism. And so I would expect the president-elect to put it on the table and discuss. And he has shown some very good strategic move in trying to bring even those who are opposed to him together. I think it's something that needs to be done. How? Number one, the traditional institution is very important because no matter how some of these individuals that are against you, they're always loyal to their traditional rulers. Get them on board. Speak to them to speak to those involved. And like I said, make sure that your camp is not making statement that looks like you're trying to make jest of the same people that you want to bring to the table. Address the issues of ethnicity, which is fast dividing this country. It has to be on the table. And of course, continue to engage. I think his camp needs to know the power of the media and give you people the safe space to ask the right questions and get the right answers. So effective communication is very important. Well, I'm hearing for the first time there's going to be a conference of this nature, but I don't know whether it is effectively pushed through the communication channels, the platforms. You know, so engagement is very important. Continuous advocacy, you know, walking in humility, making sure that you listen to people, hear their agitation, treat it with dispatch, ensure that there is a strategic plan to address the issues from the root. You know, let's not do the Nigerian factor. Let's not do the ethnicity factor, nepotism. Those things must be addressed fair and square, and then begin to implement whatever suggestions and solutions that you have. And of course, Nigerians were very patient people. Mark, I'll tell you one thing. If this president-elect assumes office on the 29th, and within 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, fixes the economy, fixes the power issue, fixes the insecurity issue, I'm telling you, he will be celebrated and carried high. We are a very peace-loving nation, and it is very, you do little things to please us, little things, and Nigeria will sing your praise. And I think if he toes this line, he could be on his way to be the most celebrated president that this country will have.
Let's go to Lagos.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Let me, at the behest of that conversation that Mr. Pele just started around communication, let me ask you, Mr. Fegba, you have been Commissioner for Information before, so you understand the challenges that anyone would have, particularly in terms of communicating to people. So, Mr. Fegba, I want to ask you, what is the challenge of really communicating with Nigerians? Successive governments have had the challenge of carrying people along in terms of getting them information that they can use, that they can trust. Because we both know that the trust deficit is critically depleted. Why should Nigerians trust this government that is incoming now, particularly beginning with the communication challenge that Mr. Pele spoke to?
Well, thank you very much, my brother. You see, if you read me in my column 2 days back, this was one of the issues I raised about lack of communication, you know, and coordination in the outgoing government. But again, every government has its own idiosyncrasies and undercurrents. And so we are looking forward to a new government, and a government that is going to be headed by a man who understands the value and the virtue of proper communication, strategic communication, carrying people along so that whatever policy framework that are in place, there will be a buy-in of the people. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a man of dialogue. He understands that engaging with issues, engaging with persons is very critical, is very necessary, very essential in building a solid foundation for implementing government policies. And so, for him, if you look at his first intervention in governance in Lagos, you see that he was able to put together a very strong team. And this time round, I know as a matter of fact that, you know, attempts and efforts are being made to streamline communication, build a coordinated approach to it, and, you know, draw up strategy that will make our communication very effective. And the language of communication, just like he said, and I want to endorse his position, will be that of appealing to the sensibilities of Nigerians, will be that of moral persuasion, you know, using, you know, superior argument to win minds. If you look at even the manifesto of Asiwaju, it talks about winning minds. Anything you are doing, whether in the security sector, whether in the unemployment sector, whether in the, you need to win minds so that they have a buy-in to your policies and programs. And so I can assure you that you are going to be witnessing a different approach where the government will not be combative. The government will be proactive. They will set agenda based on the renewed agenda, the manifesto of the candidate of the president-elect, and also integrate the Nigerian people into the framework of his governance structure.
Well,
he will be getting two things right.
Yeah.
First, the governance structure, which is by way of appointment and putting up a very strong, formidable team. Secondly, is the political structure. You need to get these two things right if you must make progress. And Asiwaju is somebody who is conversant with all of this to provoke
Mr.
and promote constructive dialogue,
pardon me for
collective bargaining and all of that.
Pardon me for butting in, but Nigerians aren't hearing such talk for the first time. And even though Mr. Perez says we're very patient people, I'm not very sure of that, because many people want all problems resolved yesterday. I'm coming to this next question that I'd like to ask you. One of the challenges that successive governments have had, particularly this outgoing, is that of collaboration of ministries, departments, agencies, and corporations. A number of examples. At some point, the Minister of Finance was at variance with the governor of the CBN over one issue or the other. Case in point, I think it was the Naira redesign and all of that. Another case in point, the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy was at variance with the Ministry of Finance for one reason or the other. All of this come under the challenge that the president raised quite a number of times, the current president, outgoing president raised quite a number of times, which is that of collaboration, particularly of the security agencies. He held meetings with security agencies more than twice, asking them to collaborate. Ministries, departments, and agencies, including corporations, total 1,484 as of 2019, according to the DG of the Budget Office. What kind of government are we going to have this time around? A collaborative one or the same of the same? Because without that, the president-elect or president cannot go everywhere. He has to use these ministries, departments, and agencies. Without collaboration, there is going to be a problem, and it's going to be the same of the same.
Well, thank you. You see, even during the campaigns, I raised this particular point you just mentioned, and I said that you cannot, two persons who are presiding over two different administrations cannot behave the same way when they are confronted with, an issue. And so you don't expect a Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency to wear the same cloak or cassock of a Buhari presidency. Essentially, in terms of even their background, in terms of even where they are coming from, they are two different persons. And so I can assure you that the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration will create a deliberate and conscious synergy amongst all government agencies, security agencies, and all of that, to deepen democracy and development, or deepen democracy for development. You see, you can't achieve much if persons are building selves within a system and holding on to their own positions without necessarily opening up the space for others to have a buy-in. There has to be deliberate and conscious. I use those two words, advisedly, that there has to be a deliberate and conscious process of ensuring that there's collaboration. And thus far, with the preparations for the transition, I can assure you that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has made this a cardinal issue. He has spoken to persons who are representing him in all of that there has to be collaboration. Even within the media and those who spoke for him during the campaigns, there are robust engagements every now and then. There are meetings where we are unable to do physical meetings. We do Zoom virtual meetings and all of that to look at issues from different perspectives, then come up with a position so that there will be, a buy-in of all the segments with a view to promoting and ensuring and sustaining government own policy framework. So I don't have any doubt in my mind that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, while he will be hitting the ground running, is going to be conscious of all of these issues you have raised.
Well, clearly, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. And I want to take this to Mr. Pili. This conversation has centered largely on the need for the incoming administration, to bring people together, have a dialogue. We heard that there was a meeting between the president-elect and the presidential candidate of the NNPP. And earlier on, when you were talking, it got me thinking, what exactly divides us as a nation? Is it as a result of the recent election we just concluded? Naturally, a lot of people voted for different candidates and they still seem to be pitching their tents with that candidate. So this administration is coming in amidst all of the, the misgivings that a lot of people had as a result of that election, cases still at the courts. But another thing is the agitations by, different nationalities, if you would say. The Southeast, for example, and I think it was just yesterday that the governor of Anambra State again put out a passionate appeal to the president to release Nnamdi Kanu. Some say that maybe that's a major sore point that sort of casts that shadow of division on Nigeria. And I wonder if you were to maybe set an agenda for the incoming administration, even the outgoing one, regarding that particular point or that issue, what would be your recommendation, Mr. Pili?
Well, Kelly, I'll come to national, what divides us, but let me speak around the governance and over bloated ministries that we have. I think this incoming administration must shrink these ministries. I think many of them are running at cross purposes. We need a smaller government that is efficient, effective, and will give us an excellent result, and that will lead us to a productive MDAs. And so, for me, if I would recommend, I think the incoming administration needs to look at some of the ministries. Do we really need them? In the past 8 years, what is it that they have been able to do? What is the legality of some of the ministries? Because there are some of them that don't have any legal basis to even exist, So there's a need to thoroughly interrogate the productivity and the people that runs this ministry. Otherwise, he will repeat the same mistake that others have made. Shrink the government, have a small team that can serve the majority of Nigerians and deliver on your mandate. What is it that divides us? Politicians and politics. Politicians take advantage of innocent people and go into them and use the wrong means of communication to confuse them and create and divide within themselves, bringing ethnicity and weaponizing it, And then, of course, the level of nepotism, it has to be my own person and my own family and everybody that have supported me. The more we do that, the more we will be divided. In summary, injustice. Injustice is a divider. When you don't serve the people that puts you in position, the trickle effect is that it will create dispassion and will further divide us. Like I said, and I repeat, it is very easy to please Nigerians if you do the needful, if you do those little things, So the issue of Nnamdi Kanu and all that, the incoming administration should address the issues and bring him and his people to the table and have a discussion, have a dialogue. What is it that you want? I am a Rivers man. I don't believe that the issue of Biafra is something that can be achieved. That will further divide us. But what is it that have been their agitation? Can it be addressed? Will you give a timeline when certain things can be done? to appease them. Not only those who are agitating for Biafra, there are other people agitating for one thing or the other.
Right.
Address those issues and provide a lasting solution that you know that you will do. And I'd like to close with to say that, listen, if any leader that wants to succeed must learn the act of promising less, performing more. And I think that has been the issue around ineffective communication. When a leader comes up and makes very bold promises and then underperforms, it creates ineffective communication. And communication is not just verbal.
So
the body language also.
Then over-deliver. I know a lot of people have that challenge. They've talked about INEC and the elections, even this outgoing administration saying there were lots of expectations. But the president-elect has said he won't disappoint Nigerians. So I don't know if for you that is over-promising or under-promising. Well, let me go to Mr. Febua and get this, get his response. Because I know that particularly for the 10th Assembly, you have spoken about the leadership, how you don't think the Southeast, for example, has that moral ground to lay claims to Senate presidency, which you have talked about and campaigned for rigorously based on the votes that came from that region. But Mr. Epele is saying, well, it shouldn't be that way. At least I imagine that's what he's saying from what I heard him say, saying it shouldn't just be your people or people who have supported you, your family, that will be a part of government. So is that an exception you think that the president-elect is willing to make, saying maybe for the Southeast and for issues regarding that, yes, I didn't get all that support, but let's put that aside and govern the country?
Let me quickly react to the issue of streamlining or shrink government in terms of stature, or eliminating some ministries or agencies and parastatals. If they are captured under the law, as I know, particularly the Constitution, it will be difficult for you to change them or eliminate them without carrying out a constitutional amendment. That's on the one side. On the other hand, the presidential system of government that we are practicing is so bogus. People have written, they have spoken against it and all of that, but it will take a process for you to be able to achieve, the optimum in terms of size of government, expectations, and also ensuring that certain things are done deliberately to keep us, afloat. Talking about the issue of the Senate presidency and of the 10th National Assembly. Yes, I came out openly to make a case for the South-South region. And my position is that the Southeast shouldn't see the clamor for the Senate presidency as an entitlement based on the erroneous, I say erroneous, belief that Nigeria is sitting on a tripod. Nigeria is not sitting on a tripod. In a union with almost over 450 ethnic multiplicities, sub-national government and all of that, every part of the union, no matter how minute, is very important, is very key. When there are agitations from little places, small places, subnational government and all of that, it is the responsibility of the political system to ensure that things are done to accommodate them in the sense of inclusion. And when people discuss the Senate presidency, my position is that the Southeast has enjoyed that position on 5 different occasions within a space of 8 years, and the Deputy Senate presidency for 12 years, or Southeast. 20 years in the life of a 24 years in democracy, that is a good progress. In this context, I cannot see how you reward failure. See, you are talking about political power. If you don't get political power, you can't be talking about power sharing. So power acquisition process is one. Power sharing is another. But in power sharing, you must take into cognizance and account those who were there to assist in the process of acquiring that power. It does not mean that when you put them in positions that they are going to be self-serving. No. They are also going to work for the overall interest of the country. But the point of takeoff will be their own positions. Maybe our Senate president is not going to be making laws on South-South alone. He's going to be making laws for the good government of the entire country. But the authority will be resided in him as somebody who is presiding over other 108 senators. So My position is that we should be removing some of these sentiments of thinking that, oh, the South has a sense of entitlement because we want to balance it, president in the Southwest, a vice president in the North, then the Senate president should come from the Southeast. No, I'm saying that there are other subnational governments in the entire country, everywhere, that should naturally be taken into account, into consideration when you are talking about power sharing.
What do you think, Mr. Pele?
It's unfortunate. For me, politics, like my brother said, you don't get power. Power is given, and is given by the people. However, if I am the president-elect, knowing fully well which I would not be though, knowing fully well what...
Why not? You don't even intend to contest.
No. I mean, you should know your position. I would rather be a kingmaker than the king.
Okay.
You know, but however, you know, if you ask me, the issue of Southeast and all that, and, you know, if you look at what is happening, feel the temper and the tempo of the nation and balance things out. You're talking about equity. Balance things out. I expect that APC should have zoned the Senate presidency to the Southeast, and then get maybe North Central for the Speaker. And both of them must be Christians to balance out the Muslim president and the vice president. That's what I would have done if I had the opportunity, knowing fully well the kind of heat we're getting from the Southeast. But that's a matter of politicians, and is you know, I don't also believe, you will say, well, I'm not a politician. I don't believe in zoning. Zoning is completely anti-democracy. Put people out there, let them contest, whoever wins.
Isn't that a contradiction? On the one hand, you want it balanced out. On the other hand, you don't believe in zoning.
No. It's not to say candidates should go... what I'm trying to say, and it's a very good point you made, is let people go out there and contest, you know, and whoever wins, all for good. The way and manner this issue of zoning at the 10th National Assembly, it's making the president-elect looks like someone who wants a rubber stamp legislature. That's just the truth, you know. So for me, that would be the way to go. But however, he and those who are in the National Assembly, they have the knife, they have the carrot. They decide what happens for millions of Nigerians, you know. But we are all watching as members of the civil society. Whoever goes there must be held accountable.
So
must be productive.
Yeah, as we wind down, you respond to that if you will. But how did the team respond to the U.S. delegations list, where the Secretary of State wasn't on that list? I know that in 2015, John Kerry was here, was in State Box as well. So how did they react to that?
Quickly, let me just respond to the point he made about Christian. Please, I think Nigeria is not made up of two religions. We should not be taking out those who don't believe in Islam and Christianity. So if you are talking about balancing, it has to be other religions. That's what is appropriate. So that those who are Ogun worshippers, Yemoja and all of that can also be accommodated. They have a right. Even atheists who don't believe that there's God. So and for you to measure that segment is also difficult, because people just believe if you are not a Muslim, you must be a Christian. It's also unscientific. Talking about the U.S. delegation, as far as we are concerned, it's a welcome development, because the bastion of democracy, and they have seen that irrespective of all the protestations and all of that, issues are in court, and they have to be seen to show support for the present position of democratic outcome, which is that there is a president-elect that will be statutorily, sworn in on Monday, the 29th of this, and they are coming with a 9-man delegation. For me, that is reassuring that in the light of all of this, despite all the global and international conspiracies and propaganda, about this election, I still believe, talking in terms of experience at election, that this last election was the best ever conducted in this country.
Well,
because
I didn't expect you to say
no. I said this based on experience. He has not experienced political this. He said he doesn't want to be a politician.
No, but
so
I've been in the electoral space.
Okay, if you have been in the electoral space, we are participants. We are involved. It's the first time that I'm seeing 7 governors losing senatorial elections. It has never happened in the history of this country. And when you have people who are Okada riders or they're winning Senate and House of Rep, it's cheering news. For me, if the process was not right, these segments or these categories of persons can't get it at that level. So we must begin to reassure ourselves, build hope in the system, and that's why I like the slogan of the president-elect, renewing hope, because hope is what keeps the people, going. Once you get to the level of hopelessness, you cannot market government.
All right, we'll have to anchor at that point. Kasim Afegwa, member, Media Strategy Committee of the PTC, the Presidential Transition Committee, and Mr. Jake Pella, CEO and founder of TAF Africa. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on this morning.
Please get involved in politics and stop criticizing politicians.
No. We all have our tough.